can't be serious, man. You cannot be serious!
Now, this is Dickie from Muff, Richard Wollstonecroft from the Melbourne Underground Film Festival. And you are ostensibly just a replacement, a very poor replacement,
yes,
for Dr. Ben Fordham, MD, who has been nobbled by Nine. He's nobbled, we've been nobbled by Channel 9. They want him exclusively on the podcast that they do.
Fair enough.
So let me say this, Dickie. It's taken me a while to warm up to what you're on about.
Okay.
But so far you've introduced me to two people on a podcast. One of them was a bloke called a neo-Nazi. What was his name? Thomas Sewell. And that got me in, I'm not sure, got me in a degree of trouble. I just thought he was a person of interest. I don't know if you knew his offsider was coming in.
Yes.
You knew he was coming in.
Oh, no. I suggested you speak to somebody.
You suggested I speak to Thomas Sewell, and then this other bloke rolled in.
Oh, I had no idea he was coming in.
He didn't?
No.
No, well, he managed to exploit.
Oh, I wanted to come down.
Exploit me.
He did, yes.
And then we got Paul Loader to come in.
Paul Motor, correct.
Paul Motor, I beg your pardon,
yes.
Paul Motor. And that was another subject of a long dissertation on the Daily Mail about me interviewing Paul Motor, another one of your suggestions. So the two people you've suggested, I've taken the belting for.
Well, they're not the only people I've suggested, though. We had Damien Richardson on, and
yes,
we had Monica
right.
Smith, and we had this, pop stars like Brian Cannon.
All the people that you suggest seem to just increase your stocks, Dickie. You get these people in here to use these facilities. I noticed Paul Motor has downloaded the whole of our interview on his website, on his channel.
I wasn't aware of that. He did mention that if he could use clips. And
clips? He's used the whole lot.
Well, I'll have a chat to him.
No, it's too late having a chat to him.
We can get it pulled down.
What?
I didn't realise he'd done that.
Didn't you?
No.
You just ask people to come in here, A, because it increases your profile at the expense of me providing all this equipment, and B, expanding other people's profile. I'm just a cash cow. You just use me. It's used me for, and it's taken me a while to work that out, Dickie.
Well, I don't think that's true, Sam. I don't think I'm using you for a cash cow. I don't get money from you.
No, I don't mean a cash cow.
No,
You're using me to.
My idea, if I might
I got you some sponsorship for the Melbourne Film Festival. You did.
Well, that's true. It was I think it was like $500, mate.
Yeah, that's a matter. You came on here.
Yes, of course. I mean, obviously, appearing on this show, it does have a large audience, and
that's why you appear on it.
Well, you invite me to come on it, sure.
I do invite. This might be the last time.
Well, okay, if you want it to be the last time, it's the last time.
It might
it's up
not
to you.
be the last time, Dickie. Right. Depends.
I wanted to explain myself if I could.
So, what other mediums beside this are you on? Do you do a podcast yourself?
I have like a little thing I do, a bit like that Paul Joseph Watson. It's called The Report from Tiger Mountain, which I do. I do one a week.
What?
It's called The Report from Tiger Mountain.
So you have a weekly podcast?
Yeah, like a little 5-minute rant or something. I've sent you a couple of them before.
Yes,
I don't know if you remember them.
No, thank you, Dickie. So you do a 5-minute rant every week.
Yes, that's correct.
And you come in here ostensibly every week, except.
Well, when you invite me. Sure.
Well, except when Wayne has to come in different days and we have to do it at different times. But you come in here ostensibly every week, which gives your little 5-minute rant a profile. Because probably more people watch this than your 5-minute rant.
Well, it would be true that more people watch this than my rants, but I don't think this is one of the first times I've mentioned the fact that I do that. I have not done it just to promote other things I do. Obviously, that could be a side effect of me appearing on the show. One of the reasons I come here is because I like you, Sam. I like what you do. And I think my thought was that you have the potential to be something like a Joe Rogan, who's one of the most powerful podcasters in the world. And I believed if you were to, just edge a bit more at times towards more controversial content, and obviously we've gotten the belting for that, as you said, but that might, replicate in some way what Joe Rogan does, which I think is quite interesting.
I've got you on the defensive, Dickie. I like
well, you
that.
have a little bit,
yeah, that's right, because so you come in here and provide nothing. I provide the topics. You do, Dickie. All you do is read headlines out of the paper and you say, oh, did you see? And you send me stuff on the phone, which I appreciate, which I bring up. You provide nothing.
Well, I don't know if I provide nothing.
No,
I mean, what does Ben? Dr. Ben. I mean, obviously he's a much more famous person than I am, but he talks to you about topics, and all
So
I try and do is I might be the version of Dr. Ben
Shut up,
from.
Dick. I tell you how it goes with Ben. I say, Ben, I see that you mentioned something about, well, let's say, Mount Panorama. An Indigenous man has been buried up there and the race might be in jeopardy. And he goes on and speaks for 7 minutes about it. And then I say, Doc, if I may, yes. So I ask you questions about how do you reckon Trump's going? And you say, well, how do you reckon he's going? And I say, well, I reckon he's going, he's fantastic. And all you do is read headlines out of the things that you send me.
I don't think that's true at all, Sam. I mean, I can talk to you in great depth about this stuff. I mean, I have a degree in political philosophy from La Trobe University. I have studied right-wing populism as a political philosophy. I can probably talk on this topic for hours if you wanted me to. I'm quite knowledgeable on a lot of this stuff.
But Dick. What we want to do is we have a bit of light and shade. We do a bit of sport, and the Duck is not that comfortable speaking about these things. Although I like his opinion.
I like he's been a good addition to the show, definitely.
Thank you, Dickie.
A lot of personality.
So as we're here now.
Sure.
If I said to you. So the government, I've done this with the Duck, but I'd like your take on it. The government have brought in what I consider a ridiculous piece of legislation to divert from the parlous state that they've got this state into.
Yes.
I mentioned them all. Carjackings, judicial system, theft, ramrods, tobacco, all that. But they're trying to silence people from having an opinion, unless it agrees with them.
Yes.
And they use the pathetic premise as if they have to announce this. They say it includes that you can be up for jail or hate speech if you it's not lawful to incite hatred, physical threats. Point out people's disability, their gender or their sexual orientation, as if you have to make a law about that. There's laws already that you can't do that. You can't do that, but they say, and this is one of the reasons, and the consequences, not the unintended consequences, the consequences of this is to stop people having an opinion that might differ from any of those people. If you think someone's gender, if you say there's only two genders and that's what you believe, but they might say that's not, you can't say that because there's other people who think there's more than two genders. And I say, well, why would someone like who has a different opinion be up for
of course
against the law?
Would you like my opinion on that?
What?
Would you like my opinion on all this?
Yes. What I'm asking you is, what do you think the idea of this new legislation which they snuck in? I don't think there was much
Sam,
trumpeting about
pretty
it.
simple, really. They're destroying Western civilization, essentially. Western civilization is under attack at the moment through various forms that you mentioned, all those things you mentioned, that are destruction here locally. But this is not only happening locally, it's happening in the UK, it's happening in other European nations, and it's happening in America. Donald Trump, to some extent, has come in to try and stop that, and that's the reason he was swept in on a wave of right-wing populism to win. Now, in relation to freedom of speech, they want to silence freedom of speech because they're changing our society so drastically, they want you to stop from being able to talk about it, right? And it's already happened in the UK. A show like this, if you did this show in the UK, even though if because you're a large celebrity, they probably wouldn't arrest you. There's a few people over there like Hopkins and stuff, and Katie Hopkins and Paul Joseph Watson. They have yet to be arrested, but they are saying the kind of thing that if the normal individual says it on Facebook, they will be arrested. And that legislation appears to be brought into Victoria. Now, will they enforce it? You know what I mean? They'll probably go after the most radical people to begin with, to maybe make an example of one or two people.
So what is that? I'm with you. Yep. So this is reverse racism against white people. So
it's about the destruction of all countries all Western
So
countries.
they
I
might
believe
go
it's
after,
an
you
attack.
said they might go after the real radical, like what?
Well, real radicals are probably like Thomas Sowell, someone like that. They'll probably make an example of someone like that first, people like that. And then they will go after the mums and dads who might complain about immigration or whatever. You know what I mean? See, what they do is, this is the way, and it's a Marxist
So hang
philosophy.
on, so you went from Thomas Sowell, from him having an opinion,
Yep.
so
That's
disbarring
who they all
his
attack first.
free speech, which is fine. You know, but as soon as I mentioned Thomas Sowell, people say, "Oh, you mentioned him again." So then you've gone to the next step, which I'm not saying you have, but
Yeah.
the next step is people having an opinion on Facebook or typing in what they want to say, and if that is not, if they say, well, we don't think immigration should be expanded, or we want to limit immigration,
Yep.
then you're saying that if that goes against the will or the spirit of this legislation, they can say you must take that down. You cannot have that opinion. Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly what I'm saying. Like that interview I listened on the way down here this morning, you did with Craig Cole, which was something you set up, by the way. I didn't help you set that up. That was something you set
Thank you,
up.
Dick.
But that is exactly the kind of thing that'll get you in trouble, because it will be that will definitely offend trans people. That interview will offend them. And they will complain to, say, a body that says, look, in the UK, you can be offended, you can be arrested for offending somebody. It hasn't quite actually happened here yet in Victoria, but this new legislation is of that calibre. They're calling it, two-tier Keir for Keir Starmer.
Yep.
And so that's what I think they're doing.
So we say at all times, and we've never said anything different, you can be what you want to be in this world. You can claim to be whatever you wish, but don't tell us that we can't. Don't tell me, for example, you can't have an opinion. Now,
Exactly.
the man that Craig Cole, he came on because he said he thought children, underage people at primary school, before they were educated enough or mature enough to make a decision about their gender, were being browbeaten and radicalised by people who have a different bent in life. And if he can't say that, and you say that offends trans people, well, that is the point. Why can other people have an opinion, and yet if you have a different opinion, that is against the law? Because that's where this is headed.
Exactly, Sam, and it goes against everything that Australia stood for, and that, it goes everything against, what the United Kingdom stood for, which gave us the Magna Carta, which gave us the modern parliamentary system of democracy that has flourished in so many European countries that used to live under dictatorships of different kinds, whether they be of the left or the right, and even America, which obviously had a revolutionary war against England at one stage. So it's a huge problem, and it's about subverting our entire civilization, which again goes back to the stuff you talk about with the Welcome to Country, which is, again, the message of that is you don't own this country. It belongs to somebody else. It's not because the people controlling things really want to help Aboriginal people. No, it's to let people know that some other force, some global force, now controls our country. And that's why they're recruiting police. Just let me finish for a second.
Yes.
That's why they're recruiting police.
Well,
you mentioned that. I listened to that with Wayne. They're recruiting police for this country overseas. Right? That means they want a completely foreign police force that has no connection to the Australian people.
Wayne thinks that was AI, and I'm not.
You show it to him?
I showed it to him, but I said if that's AI, it's taken me in. It's very easy to be taken in these days. You never know what's true or not. But you said so. My only thing about the Welcome to Country is that the myth that is perpetrated by people who want to have the narrative that this has been going on since day one, however long. This is a relatively new gimmick.
Yes.
And this is a fact, a relatively new gimmick. There is no Aboriginal word for welcome to country. There's no precedent. It was started as a bit of a joke by Ernie Dingo,
of course.
welcoming the Maoris did a haka or whatever they do at a function. He was at a music festival, and he said, "Well, I'll give you a welcome to our country." And he might have sung, I don't know what he might have sung. He might have sung one of Slim Dusty's songs. I don't know, but that
That's how it began.
It has been perpetrated so that now we all feel guilty about this country being as it was before settlement, and it is just. So if you have I have that opinion, and I reckon 90% of the people in this country have that opinion, because it's just not relevant to the indigenous culture and what we're on about. And it's nothing to do with racism. It's just that when you have the AFL put up people, uncles and aunts, some of them. Two of them I know that have criminal records that are standing up lecturing you about the country you live in. At least do your due diligence. If you're going to have someone lecture you about welcome to country, at least don't have the people who are speaking about you have serious criminal records doing it. I mean,
and it deliberately creates.
So if we discuss this, this could be one of the things that is called physical threats, or we're not inciting hatred. We're not inciting hatred. No. We're saying, stop just filling us up with nonsense if we're not allowed to push back on it, because it is nonsense.
And essentially, it's often what we speak about on this show is just a return to common sense. I mean, a common sense that a lot of us grew up with in this country, and it's just crazy what's become. And the thing with the Welcome to Country is it's a deliberate division. It says that one group of people are really the owners of Australia, which is the Aboriginal people, and everyone else is a kind of foreign invader, a kind of terrorist in a way. You know what I mean? Which is not the history of this country.
No, but they are foreign invaders. The indigenous people were the previous occupants. They weren't the first occupants. So Professor Manning Clark says in 1965, he said, "No, let's just get this straight. They were the previous occupants. Then a settlement came, and the country is what it is today, because of settlement." So that's fine. This has got nothing to do with racism. This is just factually speaking about the evolution of the country. But then you get onto something like, how can you to have an opinion that says that trans men should not play women's sport. If you think that a man who is signalling as a woman and transitioning into being a woman, because he's still a man and he's still got his man's DNA or a male's DNA, if you say that those people, that category, shouldn't be allowed to play biological women's sport, you can say that's inciting hatred, or that's bigotry, or that if you can't have that opinion about something that is so patently obvious. If you want to be a woman and you're a man, that's fine, but don't be arrogant or pompous enough to try and ruin a gender-related women's sport by wanting to be the best when you couldn't be as you were a man. So infiltrate yourself into women's sport and win all the trophies. How does that make you feel? And if I can't say something like that with the risk of being pulled up for inciting something, I'm not inciting anything. Who wouldn't, unless you are completely subjective? Who wouldn't agree with that?
But isn't it interesting that the same people who are all about trust the science, apropos something like, say, COVID vaccines, which of course actually aren't safe, and then of course trust the science in relation to, say, climate change, which of course is again bullshit science, but then real science, apropos XY chromosomes and and the fact that men are stronger than women. It's not something that is, science can prove that from here to Timbuktu.
Yes,
you know what I mean.
Some women can build the living suitcase out of men.
Sure.
But that's of course we accept that.
Yeah, but a very poor male boxer, but who is a boxer, will beat a female, probably a top, or a
golfer or a tennis player.
They have an advantage due to their chromosomes, and that's why you can't allow men into women's sport. And also women's sport, they've spent a long time, setting that up and making this competition for themselves.
So I'm just saying, with this law, who are the government trying to stop having an opinion? Why? Of course, if you're going to incite violence and you're spewing hatred and that, where do you draw the line by saying it's hatred to say that women shouldn't have men infiltrating their sport. If that's not hating transgender people, that is just a lot. So where do you draw? That's what
you just have to allow freedom of speech.
No, but this is designed to actually. The consequences, not the unintended the consequences of this are to stop people having an opinion that the government of the day doesn't agree with in the name of. So if we say diversity, equity, and inclusion is just a nonsense prerequisite for a job rather than meritocracy, getting a job on your merit, you can say. You could say, well, that's derogatory. That's hate. It doesn't matter what colour or what gender you are. If you're the best, you get the job. You can fly a plane. You can be the prime. You can do anything.
Yep.
It's got nothing to do with. But they say we have certain DEI regulations that. Have a quota system for people to get jobs,
it's because
whether they're the best or not.
It's an ideology, right? It's a political ideology, right? And that's what we're dealing with, and that's what we're being attacked with. And if you look at the different kinds of political ideology, there are different. There's right-wing ideology, there's libertarian ideology, and there's maybe centre-left ideology, but then there's the radical left, which is where this is all coming from, and it is an attack upon us, and that's why you see this kind of because they can't. It's like in communist countries, they brought in laws. You can't criticise Stalin, you can't criticise Lenin, you can't criticise Trotsky. Eventually, left-wing ideology becomes so ridiculous that the people will rise up if you don't silence them, and that's what we're seeing the beginning of, and that's why I'm interested in warning people about it.
So, give us your opinion on. I got you to speak today, Dickie.
Well, you let us speak too.
What?
Sometimes you talk over everybody, Sam. I don't know if you've noticed that.
Talk over
but it's
you?
your show. You can talk over whoever you like.
I talk over you?
No.
Who do I talk over?
Well, sometimes it's you.
Maybe I talk over you, Dickie, because you got nothing to say normally. But today,
well, you let me speak. I've got plenty to say, mate.
Right. I will give us your opinion on Trump's tariffs. How are they going?
I think they're going well. Actually, I mean,
why do you?
Well, obviously, it's a controversial thing to do because one of the things he is doing is he's taxing allies. He's saying, like Australia, we're going to put a tariff of X on you, etc. on the UK.
What's the idea?
We're allies, and we're going, hang on, mate, what are you doing? You're our friend, right? But look, I think what Donald Trump is doing is that there are a lot of unfair things.
But don't we
tariff him, of course, and we tariff the United States.
So that's the point, isn't it?
It is.
He's saying if you
leveling the
tariff
playing
us,
field.
That's right.
Yep.
So what is so controversial about that? Why are they up in arms about that?
Well, I'll tell you, it's because it goes against this ideology that I spoke of at the start of the program, the destruction of Western civilization. This general ideology that Trump has is going to build America up, right? It will also help other countries. Maybe in the short term, we might suffer some small economic inconvenience, but in the long term, and also so many countries have come to the table and said, listen, Mr. Trump, what do you want? I mean, Vietnam, who's a communist country, have come to him and said, Mr. Trump, we'll clear the debt, zero.
70 of the
and then Vietnam has come along and said, he said to Vietnam, okay, well, no tariffs for Vietnam.
Speak into the microphone, Dick.
Sorry.
Yep.
He said no tariffs for the Vietnamese. So, I think it's a bargaining chip in many ways.
Yes, and the only country that has pushed back is China, and he's
they're
that's the country they're after.
Because there is a strong chance of war, a very, very serious war, with China in this century. And I think Donald Trump, who doesn't like real wars, the way to conduct essentially a confrontation with China is to do it economically. And I don't think he wants to destroy the Chinese country. I do think he wants to put them under economic pressure. And this is one of the consequences of putting China under economic pressure is that the Communist Party might fall. And of course, they are one of the greatest criminal organizations on the face of the planet. The Chinese Communist Party killed over 50 million people, mainly Chinese citizens, mainly their own citizens in the 20th century. They are just as terrible as
this might be considered hate. We might be precluded from putting this on YouTube. The algorithm that this goes through in order to be legal to put it on, they might say you can't say that.
I don't think so. I think the Chinese Communist Party, I mean, if you're an anti-communist like I am, and I imagine you are, you know, it's fair enough to critique it. And obviously the Chinese Communist Party could collapse. It could alter into some other kind of party.
So now we've got the. Did I speak over you then? Did you finish?
No,
Yeah.
I
So
finished.
so we've got the unusual situation where the Democrats, who are the opposition to Trump,
Yep.
are embracing firebombing Teslas,
Yep.
which was the big Green New Deal was to have electric cars, the most popular car in
Isn't
the
that
world,
crazy?
and now they're saying yes, firebomb them all, key them, scratch them, belt the
Hell out of them.
attack the people who own Teslas, because Elon Musk is now trying to cut government waste out of the taxpayer dollar. Can you believe a political party is against that, or is for that because it's against Trump?
They were certainly, the Democrats were the people who were really in charge of electric vehicles, who were very much in support of them.
Yes.
So it's completely paradoxical and goes to show how the left eats itself.
Yes.
That they were the people who were probably the ones who were owning Teslas, you know,
So-
most. You certainly didn't own one, right?
No, I wouldn't own one.
Exactly.
So
There you
they have found a man. They've found 6 of them, but they've found a bloke who not only firebombed a Tesla dealership, but went and firebombed the GOP head office in I think Texas. I'm not sure. So they've found him, and they're doing no deals with him, and he might get 30 years jail. And
In El Salvador, let's hope. Because
No,
Trump's beginning to send people down there.
they said if you firebomb Teslas and the camera catches you and we pick you up,
Yeah.
don't try and do any plea bargaining because it's yes.
And they're also trying to go after George Soros, who could be funding these, you know, people who are attacking them. And they say that if George Soros is behind this, Elon Musk has said this, that finally they'll bring a charge against George Soros, because he's obviously an international criminal who has been subverting Western civilization. And not only Western civilization, you know, for example, he destroyed the economies of Southeast Asia, like countries like Thailand, by shorting their currency and
but-
sending them. These are already poor
But
countries.
he might have done that legally.
Well, I mean, legally,
you can short. So George Soros, he probably operates under the license or under the guise of free speech and freedom of enterprise and doing
believes in
what
it.
he does.
He's almost the representation of globalism, you know.
Yes.
He's like he's also a bit like Blofeld from the films, the James Bond films.
Yes.
He just needs a white cat, and you know, he's the head of Spectre.
Yes, I know all those. I'm speaking to an audience who've probably never seen any of those.
All right.
Blofeld. No, that's good. So, all right. Well, so now we've
How about
got-
Easter? How about Donald Trump and Easter? He's brought back Easter. Have you seen that? Because obviously the political correctness of the last regime, the Biden regime, didn't want to talk about Easter. They would talk about every other ethnic
because
holiday.
they're trying to dissociate themselves from being a
Judeo-Christian society.
Judeo-Christian society.
They'd
yes.
celebrate Eid, or they'd celebrate what's the Hindu
Ramadan.
festival?
Oh,
Ramadan.
in fact,
I can't remember myself.
Anyhow, yeah, but
But they're celebrating a week-long celebration. Donald Trump has announced, and I think that's a great thing. You know, I think there's no reason. I mean, you know, our countries are based around Judeo-Christian beliefs, and our countries essentially, you know, have been Christian until recently. I mean, there are other people who live here, and there's no reason we can't celebrate their things as well. But you know, there's certainly no reason we need to feel ashamed of our own culture and our own religious culture.
And a big Muslim city is being developed in, I think it's Texas, not sure.
Sure, that'll be popular.
Well, it's a big exclusive Muslim city within a city that has its own laws, its own shops, its own, and they say everyone's welcome. But have you got something on there? Because
Michigan, is that where it is? Yeah.
And it's a huge 12,000 person, because there's 4.4 million Muslims in America, and they're starting to have their own cities within cities, much the same as what's happening in England, where you can't go into certain place in England because there's a gate.
And you see, you know, real problems with multiculturalism, you know, beginning to develop, even from people who are advocates of multiculturalism. For example, many Jewish people are advocates of multiculturalism, but you're seeing many Muslims coming to Western countries who then have a lot of problems with the Jewish community, like you saw with all this recent graffiti in Sydney, and this has obviously gone on in Europe. Obviously, there's been a lot of very mysterious church burnings in countries like France. Obviously, famously, Notre Dame burned to the ground. I thought that was an incredibly tragic event. And they said that was an accident. I don't believe that for a second. I believe that was some kind of terrorist attack because it was such a symbol of Western Christianity. It's possibly maybe outside of the
That's
Vatican.
one of your conspiracy theories.
Well,
Dick.
it is conjecture.
Keep bringing people in here that have conspiracy and getting
I've suggested
me into trouble. And
Well, I'm sorry if I've got you into trouble, Sam. No, I certainly didn't
post them on their website and get.
I don't mean to do that to you, mate.
What?
I certainly don't mean to do that to you. I've just tried to bring in.
You piggyback this on the top of your very, very 5-minute rant on.
Well, I don't piggyback it. As I said, I've hardly promoted
Get your
this
promotion.
here at
I get you sponsorship for your thing. You just come in here and use me.
That's not true at all,
Hey?
Sam. I've come in here just to contribute what I can, and
You
because
usually
invite me.
contribute nothing. You've gone bang today, Dickie, or you can't
That's because
shut you up.
you've allowed me to speak. Sometimes maybe it's been me and Ivan. We've both spoken about the events of the day. I mean, it's your show, so I've just wanted to fit in the way you've wanted me to fit in. If you want me to talk more, I'm very happy to talk more.
What happens if I don't want you to talk at all and I say this is it?
That's fine, mate. If you want to do that, it's up to you. But look, it's been great. I mean, I think you're a great guy, and I think what you do is very interesting. I think you're a great guy,
Yeah, keep going. And what
and
else?
what you do is very interesting.
Yeah.
And I've only tried to contribute a little bit towards that when
No,
you've decided
Dick.
to follow my advice.
Dick, no,
Whether it be
it's
bad
been
or not.
good. It's been good. No, it's going well. All right, Dickie. Well, that's anything else?
Well,
What? Anything you want to
Of
promote?
course.
Anyone else you want me to interview? You got a pedophile you want me to have?
No, mate.
Can
No,
do
I
you
don't want to
some
get in
good?
more trouble.
No, no, shit. The Daily Mail are just they can't get enough of this. I fill up most of their newspaper with stuff they ever go at me about. Wouldn't
Well,
be
it's
good
free
if they-
publicity. You've got to look at it that way as well, I suppose.
Oh, yeah, no,
It
that's
does
right.
draw attention
I
to
can't
the
go
podcast.
out in the community. I can't go and speak at functions. They
that's
said,
not
"Oh no, you don't reflect our values."
that's not
Bullshit. I reflect 90%
I think you do
of the
respect-
values. Yeah, to reflect.
I think you do.
Yeah, no.
I think you reflect the values of the silent majority in this country.
Absolutely, Dickie. Why do we do this?
I don't know why we do it. I think it's just interesting, isn't it? Interesting to talk about. I mean, as I said, I'm somebody who is interested in political philosophy. So if I'm given an opportunity to talk about it,
You're extremely right wing.
well, not necessarily extremely right wing. There are some beliefs I have that could even be considered left wing.
Like what?
Well, I believe that some aspects of the government could be, involved in business, almost the way Donald Trump is doing that. Like he's bringing business into line with some of his own ideology. For example, that local businesses should be patriotic. They should, they shouldn't offshore their workforce. Say, with Apple, they should bring, if they can, the workforce back to America because it's an American company. And so that is like a nationalist version of economics. There's a guy called Steve Bannon, who I'm sure you know. He's like a kind of political advisor
Yes.
to Donald Trump.
Biden put him in jail.
He did, yep. But he's somebody probably of what I'm interested in, and he has an interesting background. For
But
example, he worked in film.
you said you have some philosophies that are left orientated.
some would
What
consider
you
that-
just said then had nothing to do with being left oriented.
Well, some consider that
You just
when
spoke. You just spoke for 2 minutes, thinking that I wouldn't understand what you were talking about.
Some people
and the
consider
fact I didn't understand what you're talking about made me say, "What did you just say then?"
some people think that some of the ideas of Steve Bannon are kind of a right-wing socialism. You know what I mean? Like he almost has socialist kind of ideas.
Dick,
Yep.
you've been fantastic today. Mate. That's good. And,
Thank you, mate.
No, that's good. Just see where this appears again. Will it appear on someone else's podcast? The whole thing.
Well,
will be
I certainly won't
replayed?
repost it
No,
because it's all about manners, Sam, and
I
I'll
don't
make
give
sure I have
a
a chat to Paul. Right?
Stuff. No, I don't, mate.
You don't
doesn't
care?
matter.
All right, mate.
It's just that. Don't think it goes unnoticed, Dickie.
All right, mate.
What else? Is that it?
Well, what else? Easter's coming up. What are you doing for Easter? You and Sue going away anywhere?
Oh yeah, no, we're going away. Why do we eat chocolate at Easter? That's
Interesting
doesn't matter.
question.
That's not. Now I had to do an acuity test because I had a small operation. Look, there it is. I had a small operation yesterday. I had something cut out of my thing. And I'll give you too. You can't hesitate on this. This was my acuity test. If you're over 65, they give you an acuity test in hospital now. I want you to recite the months of the year backwards.
Wow.
Go ahead.
Well, okay. Okay.
You would have failed.
December, November, October, September, August,
You would have
July,
failed.
June.
They wouldn't have operated on your dick.
Which one did I miss?
No, well, you hesitated. You just.
Well, I had to think about it, yeah.
That's right. You shouldn't have to think about it.
Really?
You should reverse your brain quick enough in order to put them in order in reverse.
Really?
Maybe
I'll fail that.
I passed, and Donald Trump's had 3 acuity tests, and he's passed every one. And they said no one has ever got as many marks as he has. And Obama,
Well, he's sharp as a tack, isn't he?
as sharp as a tack.
And you just see it. It's just such a change from Biden, like what we've seen in the
Dick.
last 3 months. Yep.
Shut up.
Shut up.
That's it.